Good evening. Meet Audrey Whitlock, a small business owner and a mother from North Carolina who hungered to be free, freed from the tyranny of state-imposed closures of businesses because of the coronavirus. North Carolina's lockdowns galvanized Whitlock and other like-minded citizens to form Reopen NC, which convened IRL rallies against the closures. 100 or so people gathered in Raleigh, most without masks, many within 6 feet of each other, channeling Patrick Henry with signs of freedom or death.
We stayed home. We flattened the curve. In fact, we did it so well that we've nearly flattened our entire economy. Today, I say no more. No more. We are all essential.
But Audrey Whitlock, despite being one of the group's organizers, wasn't able to join them. Why? Because she had the coronavirus. Whitlock felt oppressed. And the thing she felt oppressed by was the government that was trying, if imperfectly, to save her life and lives around her. And while someone like Whitlock becomes an easy hoop for social media dunking after a tale like this, she is far from unique in the way she sees things. If anything separates America from other advanced countries, or just other countries in general, it's the widespread sense in the United States that the government is the biggest threat to our well-being. From our very founding, we have been a people obsessed with the idea of freedom, even as we constructed a country on the composite foundation of genocide and slavery. Americans have long held a lofty self-conception as a uniquely free people. The freedom to speak, choose a government, own guns, abort fetuses, love whom you love, be treated equally regardless of race, spend money on elections, keep a tiger in your backyard. These claims to freedom are the grist of the American mill. Thus, from the moment the virus arrived, there have been calls for freedom and demands to be liberated. Except the thing from which these Americans long to be freed isn't the plague, it's government action to defend people against it. Free America now, Elon Musk tweeted recently, proving the old axiom that if there is a bad idea in the air, Elon Musk will find it and he will tweet it. In fact, even President Trump, the head of the national government, tweeted, "Liberate Virginia," and "Liberate Michigan," and "Liberate Minnesota," calling on citizens to defy their state governments and even the guidance of his administration. In these calls for liberation is a narrow definition of freedom that's as uniquely an American concoction as the tater tot casserole. Amid a giant buffet of menaces, it designates the government as the only source of oppression worthy of vigilance. This deep-seated tendency in American life was seized upon by big business. The corporate aversion to regulation, to taxation, to collective action could hide behind the popular cry for freedom. Ronald Reagan helped to define the cultural paradigm of the next 4 decades when he proclaimed these words:
to preserve this last and greatest bastion of freedom. In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
Now, if you hear that and think, yep, that sounds right, handsome guy, you're not alone. Most people on the right still believe this wholeheartedly, and many on the left may disagree in theory, but have made a kind of grudging peace with it. It was, after all, a Democratic president named Bill Clinton who seemed to echo Reagan when he said this:
"The era of big government is over."
Now, don't get me wrong. Government can be a very real threat to people's freedom, whether it's mass incarceration or surveilling your phone calls to your ex after 9/11 or giving children water poisoned with lead. But when so many in this country are so singularly fixated on governmental abuse, it leaves us unable or unwilling to recognize other kinds of threats to our freedom. When the COVID health crisis comes for us, or the excesses of the banking sector, or the ravages of a warming planet, many freedom-chanting Americans mobilize to fight the government instead of the actual problem. Blind to the more localized, but no less crushing tyranny of abusive corporations and greedy landlords and toxic waste-dumping companies. If you're not paid enough to live, if you're evicted once or twice a year, if your children get sick playing in the creek by your home, You may be free from a tyrannical government, and congratulations, but you are not free. If you're driving down a road without lanes or a median because the government wanted you to do you, you may be free from a bossy, bullying government, but you are quite likely to be killed by the subtler tyranny of everyone doing whatever. This widespread American attitude to government obscures the many ways in which the government, in fact, the thousands of entities that make up the public sector in the United States, protects our freedom from those other oppressions. Regulating companies so that they don't employ 5-year-olds or pay you $5 an hour. Making sure that the food you eat won't make you sick or that your children's car seat keeps them safe. That the cleaning chemicals in your house won't kill you unless you inject yourself with them. That Audrey Whitlock is kept safe even while other people are kept safe from Audrey Whitlock. We Americans can be blind to the notion that the absence of government is its own tyranny. When we liberated ourselves from the banking regulations in the Glass-Steagall Act.
The Glass-Steagall law is no longer appropriate to the economy in which we lived.
We got the subprime mortgage crisis that left millions of Americans living under the gilded tyranny of Wall Street. When we liberated ourselves from spending money on pandemic prevention, we wound up in a grave crisis for which we were underprepared, living under the tyranny of this vicious disease. A widespread American habit in recent decades of calling the government inept or corrupt, or simply overlooking or downplaying what it can do, while praising the magic of free enterprise, has made government not just dangerous or tyrannical in many eyes, but uncool. As the famous Apple commercial suggests, government is the gray box PC. Free enterprise is the Mac.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
My fellow Americans, I'm a PC.
Many of us have absorbed elements of this belief system, like secondhand smoke. You may think of yourself as someone who believes in justice and equality and supports public action in defense of those ideals, but somewhere deep down, you too may have imbibed this sense that government isn't an answer to our problems, or isn't where the action is for those wanting to make real change, or isn't worth trying to change, or isn't truly capable of addressing the complex problems of a complex world. But here's the thing. If you oppose the long war on government, you need to reclaim the idea of government as militantly as those on the other side denounce it, because the haters of government aren't shy, but many who believe in it are. As Americans petition the government right now to respond to this pandemic, it is as fitting a time as any to declare the long war on government a lost cause. With the country still short of ventilators and 30 million unemployed, more and more Americans may find themselves open to a vision of freedom in which government, decent, well-managed, efficient government, is not the problem, but the protector.